From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Cuba is ready to choose a new leadership. From 9 in the morning local time, the Havana Convention Center is hosting the opening of the new National Assembly of Popular Power. During a two-day session, the National Assembly will elect a new president and council of state. The new government will continue the revolutionary process started by Fidel Castro over 60 years ago. Among the candidates who could be the next president, current Vice President Miguel Díaz-Canel is the front-runner. An electronic engineer by training, 57-year-old Díaz-Canel comes from a younger generation of leaders with innovative ideas to continue the revolution and fight imperialism. Díaz-Canel is a well-known lover of culture, a respected man in his home province of Santa Clara, and an advocate for the rights of marginalized communities such as the LGBT.
He has all the qualities needed to represent us as president and our social and political interests.
I remember an anecdote where I asked him how it is possible that a lot of people already have color televisions and that I came to your house and I see you still don't have one. Do you know what he said to me? I have not earned it yet. It is my opinion that he is a great person, an excellent person. That is why I can tell you about him.
To speak of Miguel Díaz-Canel is to speak of a great person. Remember, that man came from nowhere. That man did a lot around here in the province of Villa Clara. He is a person who is very concerned, a revolutionary respected by the people.
There is a widespread misconception that Cuba doesn't really have elections. So let's look at how this recent cycle of elections has worked.
The latest cycle of elections in Cuba began on November the 26th, when people voted in their local neighborhoods for delegates to the 168 municipal assemblies. The candidates had been chosen earlier by the same neighborhood meetings. The municipal assemblies then selected candidates to stand for both the 15 provincial assemblies and the National Assembly of Popular Power. On March the 11th, 7.4 million Cubans turned out to vote for these provincial and national assemblies. That was almost 83% of the electorate. Now, on April the 18th and 19th, it's the turn of the 605 elected members of the National Assembly, 53% of whom are women. That's the second highest female participation in the world. The members of the Assembly are voting for the President, Vice President and Secretary of the National Assembly, and then for the 31 members of the Council of State, which runs the country between sessions of the National Assembly. They're also choosing the President of the Council of State, who replaces Raúl Castro as President of Cuba, as he is stepping down.
Cuba's National Assembly is meeting 57 years after the revolution's victory over the Bay of Pigs invasion. It was the first big defeat for U.S. imperialism in Latin America. teleSUR has been talking to some of those who took part.
For Héctor Gallo, April is a whirlwind of memories. At 93, he cannot forget the secret mission he was entrusted with, when in those first months of 1961, an invasion of Cuba seemed imminent.
I had to succeed. It was my all, my very reason for being, to get hold of that information.
Nobody knew when or where the attack would happen. Gallo was a diplomat in Costa Rica at the time. He recalls how, by a strange coincidence, what he needed fell into his hands when he met a strange character who said he was a mercenary.
The man said, "Look, my daughter is sick. I don't care about Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Castro. I only care about the money."
Gallo insists he didn't pay for the information, but helped the man who then gave him a coded text along with a decoder.
It was exactly what we were looking for. It said where they were leaving from, where they would come ashore, and the time, at dawn. But the date was wrong, the 24th of February.
Soon afterwards, Cuba was living the days before the invasion. The news was full of it, and Cubans were promising to defend socialism.
This is what they cannot forgive, that we are right under their noses, that we made a socialist revolution right under the nose of the United States.
The CIA was putting the finishing touches to Operation Pluto. Cuba was getting ready to resist the invasion. Only one thing was certain. If they came, they would stay. The people in arms defeated the mercenaries in 72 hours. Fidel himself led the capture. 1,200 mercenaries were arrested. The then captain in the rebel army, Pedro Luis, recalls how Fidel talked to the prisoners.
I swear they talk about all sorts of things. He asked, "Why did you come?" Well, they said, "We came to liberate Cuba." Liberated from what? He asked. Well, from communism. But what is communism? He asked them. And they didn't have a clue what communism was.
In a rapid trial, the mercenaries were convicted of treason. For the first time ever, North American imperialism was forced to pay war indemnities for the damage caused, and that to a socialist country just 90 miles off its coast.
11 Brazilian senators have paid a visit to Brazil's former president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, at the Federal Police Building in Curitiba, where he's been held. The senators are part of a human rights commission in Congress. They said Lula is in good spirits, but could have his visitation rights severely limited. The leader of the Workers' Party, Gleisi Hoffmann, denounced this as a violation of Lula's rights. Former Uruguayan President José Mujica is still awaiting permission to visit Lula.
He's been very strong and is very positive with regards to this entire situation, and he will overcome it. So we left the visit with Lula stronger than when we started, purely because of Lula's strength. He's not thinking of himself, but rather he's thinking about Brazil.
During the visit with President Lula, we saw a person who is very determined, calm, and absolutely certain of his innocence. Of course, there are also other people here who are outraged with the way he is being treated. Overall, he asks that we continue with this resistance and show the injustice of this system.
And demonstrators gather outside the offices of the Global Media Network on Tuesday night to protest against what they call a media coup against former President Dilma Rousseff. They say the media conglomerate also actively contributed to the case against Lula to stop him from standing in the upcoming elections. The demonstrations were organized by several campaign groups. Earlier, Ignacio Lemus sent us this report from the protests in Sao Paulo.
We are outside of the media network monopoly Globo, with nearly 10,000 demonstrators primarily brought together by the MTST or the homeless workers movement, who have arrived to reject the role of this media monopoly in the political imprisonment of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, as well as the role Globo had in the parliamentary coup against Dilma Rousseff in 2016, and the role of his media monopoly in the military coup of 1964. Globo is the second largest media conglomerate in the world and is being denounced by social movements, which have arrived marching from a local metro station during a day when occupations were also held at other locations, where Globo Network is headquartered in various states. Right now, the gate is being shaken as demonstrators are attempting to enter.
That was Ignacio Lemus from Sao Paulo. And we'll take a short break now, but join us after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Despite official political campaigning for Venezuela's presidential election not beginning until Friday, an election buzz is beginning to take hold across the country. Freddie Gillingham has more.
Members of the Somos Venezuela movement, which is fielding President Nicolas Maduro as its candidate, brightened up the streets around Caracas's Plaza O'Leary. The campaign road ahead is just around the corner. 3 buses belonging to the movement are set and ready to begin a tour of the country. Among the supporters was the movement's General Secretary, Delcy Rodriguez, who joined the group as they prepare for what will be a 15-day journey around 200 towns.
I'm the daughter of Italian migrants who escaped World War II. My dad was in a concentration camp for 8 years. They experienced the real war with bombs, hunger, and lack of medicine, and they survived, and Venezuela welcomed us.
Over in Vargas State, opposition candidate Henry Falcon was drumming up his support. With other parties of the right calling for a boycott, many opposition supporters are placing all their hopes on the former mayor of Laura State.
Chavistas are Venezuelans just like us. What are we gonna do? Reconcile like Venezuelan brothers and respect each other regardless if they think differently than us?
Political campaigning is set to begin on Friday and will run until May 4th. Freddie Gillingham, teleSUR, Caracas.
In Argentina, bank employees are taking to the streets with a new 48-hour strike. They demand a fair salary increase to cover an ever-rising cost of living in the country.
With no agreement reached in salary negotiations, bank employees are holding their 6th strike so far this year. They have taken to the streets of Buenos Aires to draw attention to the national strike taking place across all financial entities of the country.
We've had enough. We, the workers, are tired. It can be that only the powerful sectors are favored, and the workers, who have put all our effort into increasing bank profits, only get a miserable salary increase.
Bank workers' patience is wearing thin. In negotiations, they are asking for an increase above 19%, way beyond what banks have been willing to offer.
Everyone who was convened has mobilized. Our employers and the government are provoking and extorting us. This will be the 4th month without a raise.
Even if they want to hide it, even if they want to say that everything is okay, people will take to the streets to say everything is not fine. We need a raise, and 15% is not enough. We want more.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Labor is pushing financial entities to ensure salary increases do not exceed 9%. Everything indicates that tensions and protests will continue.
We regret taking this measure, but they have given us no other option. We even proposed in advance of the increase so we could continue negotiating without strikes, but it seems like no one cares.
The Bankers Association has said that time is up and warns that if there are no concrete answers by bank entities, protests will continue next week as well.
In El Salvador, the National Police announced that the ongoing investigation of the murder of journalist Carla Turcios is advancing quickly. The director of the police, Howard Cotto, said many could be the causes of the crime. Turcios' body was found on Monday on a highway 100 kilometers northeast of the capital city, San Salvador.
We have maintained constant communication with the President of the Republic, who has urged us to use all the resources needed in order to solve and clarify the case, as well as to demonstrate the criminal involvement in the assassination of 32-year-old Carla Turcios.
Also in El Salvador, a court has ordered the reopening of the case against those behind the murder of 6 Jesuit priests and 2 others in 1989. In 2000, the accusations against 6 former generals and the former president Alfredo Cristiani were dropped. A lawyer for the victims, Arnau Bualenas, tweeted that the judge has ordered the prosecutor to present the case again so they can restart the judicial process. The Jesuit priests were prominent critics of the Salvadorian government during its US-backed war against the FMLN guerrillas. And archaeologists have found traces of a pre-Columbian community at a beach resort in Uruguay. Scientists believe the remains found at Playa Mansa on the Atlantic coast are at least 1,300 years old. The indigenous people of the area were brutally wiped out following the Spanish invasion.
The conservation of this site is very important because it allows us to reconstruct even the diet that these indigenous people follow.
It is quartz chipping. It is leftover from the carving activities that the peoples here used to carry out. They were elaborating some type of tool made of quartz.
In Chile, the 2018 National Award for Medicine has been given to a doctor with links to the infamous Colonia Dignidad community, a sect blamed for numerous abuses during the Pinochet dictatorship and afterwards.
The winner of the National Award for Medicine is the controversial psychiatrist Otto Dörr, linked to the German enclave in the south of the country, where torture, child sexual abuse, and disappearances occurred during the Pinochet dictatorship.
Es una falta de conciencia ética grave.
It's very offensive to the victims of Colonia Dignidad and to the Chilean society to award someone who used medicine as an instrument of repression and human rights violations in Colonia Dignidad.
Dr. Dörr publicly defended the secretive German sect, where abuses took place. He is also accused of medicating members of the community who tried to escape. The community was controlled by former Nazi doctor and convicted pedophile Paul Schaefer, who held its members in virtual slavery. Schaefer was jailed in 2006.
Schaefer worked this way. If someone tried to escape, then magically there were medical certificates that declared them crazy when they were perfectly sane. That is how the Schaefer machinery worked. Dr. Dörr was directly involved in the case of Mr. Stricker, a Colonia Dignidad member who died under his care.
Chile's National Award for Medicine has been annually since 2001. The judges include private institutions like the Medical Academy of Chile. Dr. Otto Dörr is recognized for describing bulimia nervosa as a disease for the first time, although there aren't any official statements yet. Dörr has said himself that his links to Colonia Dignidad are merely anecdotal.
Sadly, this person who is receiving the National Award for Medicine has lied because he told me personally on a TV show that he used to vacation in Colonia Dignidad and that everything that was happening at the time against Paul Schaefer and his organization had to do with the envy that Chileans feel towards foreigners.
In the 1990s, Colonia Dignidad was raided and investigated. The dramatic testimonies of the survivors left no doubt that the accusations of pedophilia and torture against the sect were true. That was when Karl Stricker died after being treated by Dr. Otto Dörr.
I would hope that somehow Dr. Dörr himself would have the courage and decency to reject the award, because that would show that he's really sorry about being an accomplice of all this.
For now, the controversy continues and the Medicine Academy remains silent.
We'll take another short break, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia team reports. The Global Chemical Weapons Watchdog, the organization for the prohibition of the chemical weapons in Syria, has been in Duma to investigate accusations of chemical attack. Western countries say a chemical attack happened in the town 11 days ago. The UK and the US also blame Russia for blocking the site of the attack, while Russia and Syria say they are fully cooperating with the fact-finding team. British war correspondent Robert Fisk has also gained access to this attack and has made an extraordinary discovery. A doctor that Fisk interviewed said that people suffering in the now famed White Helmets footage of the attack were, quote, overcome not by gas, but by oxygen starvation in the rubbish-filled tunnels and basements in which they lived, on a night of wind and heavy shelling that stirred up a dust storm. A woman who witnessed the event also added, quote, a white helmet shouted gas, and panic began. People started throwing water over each other. Yes, the video was filmed here. It is genuine, but what you see are people suffering from hypoxia, not gas poisoning. This footage shows the mass of underground tunnels Fisk describes. They were used by the Jaish al-Islam militant group and sprawl under the recently liberated Douma in eastern Ghouta. The tunnels are intricately constructed and would have taken a huge effort to build. Reportedly, local civilians were forced into slave labor to dig the labyrinth.
God shall not be on their side, the terrorists. They have starved us, besieged us. They traded in our blood. As you see, these tunnels are massive. From one tunnel to another, from one exit to another. They had kept this work on them, as well as civilians. They wouldn't feed those who wouldn't work. And one can see how big these warehouses are, and how much they have in there. The warehouse in Douma is like a city beneath a city. I can show you, tunnel upon tunnel, even extending to the other Ghouta. What can I say? They humiliated us. They treated us badly. So-called Jaish al-Islam? No, they are terrorists. Thank God, with the help of the Syrian Arab army, they liberated us and we got rid of them.
An alleged rebel chemical arsenal was also discovered by Russian troops in the basement of a high-rise building in the eastern Ghouta city of Douma on Tuesday. A statement by the Russian Ministry of Defense reports that chemicals such as chlorine, thiodiglycol, and dioethylamide were found at the site, which local residents were not allowed to enter. And let's now return to our main story, the opening session of Cuba's National Assembly, which will begin in a few minutes. Our correspondent Laura Prada is right there.
Continuity and renovation are the key words of today. Today, here in the Palace of Conventions, is starting the 9th legislature of the National Assembly, when the 605 newly elected in the month of March, the deputies for the National Assembly elected, will be taking charge of their position, and they will be choosing the President and the Vice President and Secretary of the National Assembly. And they will vote for the President, First Vice President, and other Vice Presidents of the island, taking into consideration that this, in this way, will end the ruling of the historic generation of the revolution. We will be here at the Palace of Convention sharing with you what happens today. We must remark that this is the final step in the general election process that started in the month of November with the election of the municipal deputies, delegates, and the provincial delegates in the month of March.
Thank you, Laura. That was Laura Prada from Havana. And hundreds of people in Malta have held a vigil to remember anti-corruption journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia 6 months after she was killed by a car bomb. People held up photographs of the murdered journalist outside the cathedral and the main courthouse. 3 men have pleaded not guilty to using a mobile phone to detonate the bomb outside her home on October 16, 2017. Caruana Galizia was investigating corruption on the island when she was murdered. Her son Matthew said his family will not give up the fight to bring the people who killed his mother to justice.
My mother really believed in using humor as a tool to undermine corrupt people or people who abused their power. She thought the best way you could get at them was by making fun of them. And she did this extremely well, and that's what made her so dangerous to these people.
Starbucks Coffee will close over 8,000 stores in the US on May 29 to give staff racial bias training. Nearly 170,000 Starbucks employees are expected to do the training. The city of Philadelphia launched an investigation into a Starbucks shop where 2 black men were arrested for sitting at a table. Starbucks says the manager who called the police has been fired. And we will be bringing you live coverage of the National Assembly in Cuba as soon as it happens. So stay with us here at teleSUR. Now we've come to the end of this news brief, but as you know, this and many other stories, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And you can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For teleSUR English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.